Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named LiYing Lim. LiYing is the founder of When Still Waters Speak and is a transformation mentor and divine energy alchemist. LiYing is here today to share her thoughts on the mind, body, and spirit conditioning that is happening all around us, even without us even realizing it. Her journey is one of a suppressed voice, body image issues, and perfectionism. With a career in the fashion industry, she is no stranger to the bombarding thoughts and images that surround the female culture of beauty. She joins us today to share her real thoughts on living on purpose and embracing our authentic power. Welcome, lady. How are you?
Really, really good. How are you, my love?
I am doing fantastic. I so appreciate you joining me and hanging out with me a little bit today. It's actually morning here in the US. I didn't even ask what time it is over there.
It's about 3 p.m. here, so we're midway through our day.
Are you in the future?
No, I think we're on the same
We're on the
day,
same day. So
actually.
today is the 23rd over there. It's Thursday.
Yes, yes, it is. And I'm in
Very cool.
Edinburgh for anyone who's wondering. I'm in Scotland. So yes, we're on the same day. So we're not exactly in the future, but sometimes we kind of cross through that, don't we?
Yes, yes. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you and hear some more about your journey, your story. I think that the
Mhm.
journey that you've been on in your life is so interesting. And I feel like it just goes from just one side of the spectrum all the way to the other side of the spectrum. And I just love where you're deciding to kind of pave your way through your journey. I just think it's so beautiful. So I'm excited to kind of dig in and learn more. The first question that I'd like to kind of start with is just what's the biggest challenge? You know, you've lived a nice, solid life up to
Mm.
this point. You've been through, I'm sure, tons of ups and downs. And just kind of curious, what's the largest challenge that you've gone through this far in your life? And then what did you learn from that challenge?
Wow, what a great question. Thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure and also my mission to really share my story in a really, truly authentic way. So, yes, nothing, I'm not holding back anything today. So, feel free to ask any questions. I would love to share anything that is going to be of help to anyone at all. So, my biggest challenge, I would say, absolutely. I think the first thing that came to me was absolutely just transcending anorexia, I would say. I don't really like the word overcome because I feel like even if I had the choice to choose again, I think that has to happen anyway, because otherwise I wouldn't be in this position today where I deeply, deeply connect with not just my soul, but also my body and my mind, and kind of working, allowing them to work with each other in such a big way. So definitely, I was anorexic for about 10 years of my life. That was pretty much towards the third year of university until pretty much the most of my adulthood, really going through my 20s. It wasn't until the when I was 30 years old that I actually felt like, damn, like this is crazy. Like, what am I doing with my life? I don't want to live forever fearful of how I would look like and holding myself back and hating myself every single day. And so, yes, I would say anorexia was like pretty much the biggest challenge I ever have transcended.
How did you not overcome? How did you transcend out of that, I guess?
Oh, I love that. Oh, well, I really, really love the word transcend, because I think, for me, there's nothing wrong with using overcome. It's just, for me, I feel like overcome feels like I had to kind of like come over, like pass through it. But to me, it felt more like really embracing that story and making it my own, and I think a lot of what I teach my clients as well, and I hope to share with all of your beautiful people who are listening, is that whatever challenge that we have, they're not here to break us. They're absolutely here to allow us to own an even bigger part of who we really are. So how did I do that? Well, I have to tell you, I was stuck in semi-recovery for a long, long time. When I was officially diagnosed with anorexia, I was really, really in a really bad place. I kind of kept away from social life because I was really scared of being in a social position where I have to be forced to eat. I was over exercising. I broke up with my first boyfriend. And I was working in my first ever job that I really didn't like. I didn't really connect with that world at all, but I was just going through the motion as an adult would, leaving university, figuring out what I want to do in my life. And a lot of times, anorexia was something that felt like I had control of my life. It's like the one thing I could control, right? It's like, how do I eat? How do I exercise? How can I fix that number on the weighing scale? And so eventually I dropped down to a really ridiculously low weight that was quite threatening to my life. And that was the one time that I actually saw my mom burst into tears. And this is a mother that I can tell you that I never really had a good relationship with at first. I do have a beautiful relationship with her right now, but at the time I held a lot of wound and I blamed it on her a lot. And so that was the first time I saw her burst into tears and actually beg me to go and see a doctor.
Wow.
And that was the reason why I went. Otherwise, I would never have even seen that I had an issue. I thought that I was still in my head, I was still thinking, oh, I'm really, I don't like to use this word either, but I'm just going to say it. At the time, I thought I was really fat. I really was ugly, and in a way that I didn't even want to look at myself in the mirror. I just had so much hate for myself. I went to see a doctor, but unfortunately, I think she had zero experience with anorexia. She was someone that someone else recommended, and she even put me on some really weird hormonal jabs and things like that, which caused me to just go over, like, really just like, it was like complete havoc in my body, chaos. So we stopped seeing her, and that was when actually one of the blessings of seeing her was that she introduced me to a hypnotherapist. And I was in a position where I had no spirituality at all. I was just like totally shut down. I was totally shut down. And so when I walked into that hypnotherapist's office, I was also really skeptical. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to go with it. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made, actually, because that really started me on this journey of uncovering what's happening in the subconscious. And it has allowed me to forgive myself. It has allowed me to forgive my mom. And going from there, I was able to step into a career of my dreams. And then it took me even further to another career of my dreams. But it was then that I actually found myself disillusioned. I thought I had everything. I thought I was going to be happy, but I didn't. And so that was when I met Tea Spirit, which is something that I do right now as a ceremonial keeper of the Way of Tea, or otherwise known as Cha Dao. So quite a wild ride. I've had a couple of lives, let's just say.
Yes, definitely. It's kind of interesting hearing you talk about your journey through anorexia and how you were actually isolating.
Mm,
Because when I think of that, stereotypically, I think that, like, I think of like a supermodel and how they kind of flaunt and would want to take pictures and show off and hang out and party, or but you kind of had a different experience. Is one experience or the other more prevalent? Like, do I have
Mm,
that stereotype for no reason? Is it kind of like 50-50 where some people do
wow.
totally isolate?
That is so interesting because it's not completely untrue. You have a point there because when I was hiding away in that sense, I did take a lot of pictures. And at that time, I don't know if you still remember, but we had something called a blog. So like a blog spot. I had a blog spot account where I would just kind of journal on it, and then I would just post pictures of myself in outfits that I really loved putting together. Like I really enjoyed dressing up. I still do today, but at that time, I think it's almost like a very um, what is that word? It's almost like you kind of hate it, but you also love it. Kind of, abusive relationship you have with yourself because there is that inner voice. And I still remember because I used to call that voice Hector. And I would be like, Hector is really good. I can tell you this, like at the time, that was exactly my thought form, right? Like he's doing me all the good stuff. He's telling me how to be better. He's telling me he's pushing me harder. And so in that sense, it manifested in the over exercising and super tight control over what I eat or don't eat. But on the other hand, I also found an outlet in the way that I put outfits together. I really enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed putting the outfits together, but I never did it like in a way to show people. Like I just took pictures for myself, if that makes any sense, and then I just put it on Blogspot. It doesn't matter who saw it. Um, and I think it's just such a strange relationship in a way,
It's so interesting that he was a man.
Yes. Yeah. I still remember. It's interesting because I would always think that it's doing me good. It's doing me really good. He's always telling me what to do. And the name I gave it, it's so interesting. And I never heard anything else except that voice for years. So we're talking like at over exercising for 3 hours every single day, Sabrina. It's like sometimes I look back and I'm like, how did I even do that? How did I even not die from that? And so I
Yeah.
have big gratitude every single day. That's kind of one of the other thing that fuels me to do what I'm doing today, to share this with women all around the world, because I think there's so much suppression just by the way that women are taught or girls have been taught to be,
Yeah.
the way we are supposed to look after ourselves, and that is already a huge foundational issue because that creates so much. The way that we think becomes smaller and smaller because we think that that's all that matters, and we
Yeah.
don't accept the cycles of age and life that we take on because we think we have to be in total control of that to be accepted. So yeah, that I can go on forever on that, but yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely 100%. I went through a couple of bouts with eating disorders, an eating disorder. I used to low key um, be jealous of girls that
Mm,
could do anorexia because I couldn't. I would get massive migraines if I didn't eat, like to the point of not even being able to function. And I don't know if that's normal, but I couldn't handle it.
mm,
So I went the opposite route where I would overeat and then binge. So I
mm,
did binge and purging for on and off for, I think the longest stint I did was maybe 6 or 7 months. But the issue that I had, which was always different than things that had seen on like Oprah or any of those other shows, was they would always show a woman who was looking at herself in the mirror, and while she was looking in the mirror, she would be like dissecting her body as far as like, I'm too fat here, I'm too fat here, I need to lose here, I need to lose here. For me, I kind of didn't really recognize that I had a problem, because when I looked in the mirror, I actually, during those times and during several times, I also did the over exercising thing, but I did them at separate times. So like I over exercised a ton. And then when I couldn't do that anymore because of time restraints, I'd switch to bulimia. And then when my time restraint opened up and I could have time to exercise, then I went through this whole like cycle of over exercising or throwing out my food for extended amount of time. But when I looked in the mirror, I was actually happy with what I saw. My issue was when I wasn't looking in the mirror. I would visualize, like I would see people out and about walking, and I would compare myself to these people. And every once in a while, with boyfriends or friends or whatever, I would say like, I look like her. And they'd be like, are you freaking insane? You're like 10 times smaller than that person. But in my head, without looking at myself, I visualized myself as being bigger than I actually was. So because of the things that I saw on TV and on shows, I actually thought, I didn't actually recognize that I had a problem until like way later. And when the last time I did the binging and purging, I recognized that like it was going on for so long that I had a problem. Like I was starting to get sore throats. I was like, messing up my body.